Okay, welcome back to the Melmac podcast, and I have a lot of things to talk about. It's kind of dated and all, but I'm still going to talk about it. And I decided that I'm just going to try and do this podcast once a week, like just whenever. I just don't have a lot of time, but it's still interesting. But I still want to try and do it at least once a week, if that. But, it's okay. So I got a lot to talk about. So, first segment, obviously we're going to be doing some news. Just kind of whatever off the top of my head. And the first news I want to talk about is that Tom Petty is going to have a new album out this summer called Hypnotic Eye, which I really like Tom Petty's music. I think he's a great songwriter. And what would be my favorite Tom Petty song? Probably Mary Jane's Last Dance. I think that's great. And so I can't wait for his new album. It's said that it's going to kind of go back to the sound of his first two albums. So I think that's going to be cool. And in fact, I actually saw Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers a couple years ago at Jazz Fest in New Orleans. And they played a great show, just a great show. They are rock and roll to the max. And they just put on a great show. They really know how to kind of talk with the audience, if you know what I mean. And so, anyone who hasn't seen Tom Petty live, I highly suggest it. They're very good live, and so can't wait for that album. And also, on a sad note, Oderus Urungus, I think that's how you say his name, from GWAR, died a couple weeks ago. And I'll be honest with you, I never really listened to GWAR. I've only heard a few songs of theirs. And I actually did like them, like those songs I heard. So I might go ahead and kind of go and listen to some of their albums, because from what I hear, they're a cool band. And so rest in peace, Oderus. And okay, so in other news, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has come and gone, apparently without error. A lot of bands went in. Let's see, Nirvana got in, and that was like the big main event spot for them, because they were inducted last, and they got some pretty cool people to play with them. Dave Grohl, Chris Novoselic, and Pat Smear, who was the touring guitarist for Nirvana, as far as my information is correct. But they played the set. They played "Smells Like Teen Spirit" with Joan Jett, which I don't ever watch the Hall of Fame on TV when it comes on TV on HBO, but now I'm going to have to, because Joan Jett performed with the surviving members of Nirvana. I have to see that. And I'm just going to wait till it comes on TV, because I don't want like a guerrilla type, camera thing. I'm sure it's great, but I'm just going to wait till it's professionally done. So, and also Kiss got inducted. All four original members actually stood up on the same stage, which honestly kind of surprised me. But after all the things that they said in the media, yeah, like it was just kind of insane for a time. It's just insane to be a Kiss fan. But I really think that they kind of pulled it off. And I'm surprised they were inducted second, I think. They were one of the first to be inducted in the night, which is kind of disappointing, because Kiss had been ignored for 15 years. I mean, it was absolutely disrespectful. And Paul Stanley and all the guys were just kind of bashing the Rock Hall, and for good reason. So that was cool. The E Street Band got inducted. Hall & Oates got inducted, which is cool. I like them. So really, nothing really special happened at the Rock Hall as far as I know. There was supposed to be a final jam with everybody. They were going to perform AC/DC's Highway to Hell. but unfortunately the E Street Band went on way too long, and they had to cut that for whatever reason, which, that's just kind of disrespectful to the other bands, but whatever, and so that's all for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They still have a lot of work left to do. They got Kiss in, which is great, but they need to get Deep Purple in, Thin Lizzy in, Motorhead and Iron Maiden, and of course Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. There's still a lot of work to be done. They're improving, I will say that. They are improving very much, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So, next up, Ace Frehley is going to have a new album out in June, and it's going to be called Space Invader, and we don't know all the details of it, but we do know that there's going to be a cover of Steve Miller's The Joker on there, which, honestly, that is definitely a song that I could see Ace doing. And so, can't wait for that one. I really liked Anomaly, his last studio album. So, this is definitely going to be cool. And another upcoming album, Michael Jackson's Escape. And that is Escape with an X. It's better than just Michael. I would say that. Michael Jackson, he's kind of becoming Tupac now. Just releasing albums after he's dead. But, I didn't really like the Michael album that came out a few years ago. I didn't really get to listen to a whole lot of it, but from what I heard, it wasn't that great. The only good song I really liked on there was Hollywood Tonight, but that was about it. And I like Michael Jackson's music. I really do, particularly the Bad album, Dangerous, and History album. I really like those three. Thriller is also great as well. And really, that's it. We'll find out when it comes to it. And finally, the last news of this first segment for all the wrestling fans out there. This is another sad one. The Ultimate Warrior died this past Tuesday, which that just came out of nowhere. I mean, this was just a few days after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And not only that, he showed up on Raw the day before he died, which is just even stranger. If you listen to his promo, it's just bone chilling. It's like a lot of people are saying that he kind of predicted his own death, and I really don't think that's true. But it just kind of places it in a new light. But Ultimate Warrior, I never really got to watch him because I was born in '95, so I wouldn't have watched him. But I did go back and watch clips of him, and he was pretty good, I guess. I mean, he definitely was I don't know how to put this, kind of an out there guy, especially with his promos. But he was like the most impassioned guy on there. He had some powerful mic skills, that's for sure. And so, I really don't know what else to say. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. Oh, yeah. On Raw, he looked fine to me. He looked fine, looked fairly healthy. So it definitely came as a shock, definitely, because nobody was expecting this. So that's all for segment 1. And we're going to segment 2, Shoot the Shuffle. I take my first 10 songs on my iPod. I shuffle them around, and I tell you what I think about them. And so number 1 on here is You're Crazy, which is an acoustic version by Guns N' Roses from GNR Lies, which is an EP that they did in '88. And the weird thing about this album is that it's kind of a reissue and a EP, because the first 4 songs on it are from an EP that they did before Appetite for Destruction called Live Like a Suicide, or I think that's how you say it. And that's all right. It's basically like a fake live album. It's studio songs, but they just put crowd noises into it to make it seem like a live album. And so in the final 4 songs, there's acoustic kind of songs. Patience is great, and this one's great too. You're Crazy, which is an acoustic version of the one that's on Appetite for Destruction. And I'm not sure which one I like better. I guess I like this one a lot better. It's a bit more mellow, and I think that's originally what they wanted to do anyway. And so it's pretty good. Number 2 is Sure Feels Right by 6 a.m. from This Is Gonna Hurt. And it's kind of funny that we get to 6 a.m. because today's topic is Mötley Crüe, but more on that in just a few moments. 6 a.m., I'll talk more about them when we get to Mötley Crüe. But this is a good album. Not a good album, a good song. But from an okay album, I should say. Number 3 is The One I Love by R.E.M. from Document. This is kind of early R.E.M. in some ways. Kind of their 80s work before they got, and then the 90s alternative scene where they got really big and stuff. And this is a good song by them. Number 4 is These Covers Don't Run by Iron Maiden from A Matter of Life and Death. I really need to listen to A Matter of Life and Death album because I had the whole album. I just haven't bothered to listen to it all. But this one is definitely very good. And so it's basically Maiden being Maiden. You know, Iron Maiden has this sound. They know what they can do. They do it well. And really, that's all there is to say about it. Number 5 is Californication by Red Hot Chili Peppers from Californication. There's not a lot to say about this song. Great Chili Peppers song. Very mellow. And it gets the job done. Number 6 is One World by Anthrax from Among the Living. Great song. Great thrash metal song. It's Anthrax. They're heavy. And they do what they do. Number 7 is Paul Skit by Eminem from the Eminem Show. It's kind of all the Paul skits are pretty funny on the Eminem's albums, and it's they just do he just does what he does, and the skit basically talks about how he doesn't want Eminem to bring a gun into his studio because he can't have it on him. So it's basically kind of expect that from Eminem. Number 8 is You're the Devil in Disguise by Elvis Presley from Elvis' 30 number 1 hits. And I like a few Elvis. He's a bit old-fashioned for my taste, but I still like him. Number 9 is The Conjuring by Megadeth from Peace Sells But Who's Buying. Underrated song by Megadeth. And this is a great song. It's about black magic and all. It's a shame that Megadeth doesn't perform the song live anymore, but I think it's pretty cool song. And number 10 is Mr. Frump and the Iron Lung by Weird Al Yankovic from Weird Al Yankovic. This is honestly a kind of funny song because it really just kind of, it's really dark too because, Weird Al he is very funny. I really like his music. He might have a new album coming out this year, but anyway. It's very dark about a guy who goes and visits this guy in the Iron Lung. And it's hilariously dark is the best way to describe it, So that's all for Shoot the Shuffle. And now we move on to the main course, and that's Mötley Crüe. And recently they announced that they were retiring. I'll talk more about that. And I thought that there would be no better way than to kind of honor Mötley Crüe by kind of just talking about them. And I want to talk about their first album called Too Fast for Love. And this is a really good album. Like, it really rocks. It kind of has that raw, kind of punkish sound to it. The production is very minimal, at least compared to future Crüe albums, but it's just great. Like Tommy Lee's drumming, and I've always liked Tommy Lee as a drummer. He's probably my favorite drummer, actually. And his drum sound on here is magnificent, especially in the intro of Starry Eyes. That's a really good song. Pretty much most of the album is pretty good. On with the Show is great. Piece of Your Action, Live Wire, everything is very good. And now I'm kind of going to move on to Shout at the Devil. And Shout at the Devil is kind of like the classic Crüe album. And it has some good songs on there. The title track is great as well. Looks That Kill, Too Young to Fall in Love, God Bless the Children of the Beast is a magnificent instrumental. And I kind of wish Crüe did more instrumentals. And I can't wait for Mick Mars' solo album. I know it's going to be different than Mötley Crüe, but still, I can't wait. I think he's an underrated guitar player. And I really want to talk about Mick Mars for just a second. Mick Mars is one of the most underrated guitar players ever. The guy can play, man. And it's just, you kind of see the rest of the crew, Nikki Sixx, Tommy Lee, and Vince Neil in the news a lot, but you never hear about Mick Mars. But, I don't mind it, because Mick Mars is really seems like a really cool guy. The guy can play, so yeah. Anyway, their cover of Helter Skelter is really good as well. And I always thought it was kind of odd for Mötley Crüe to do a Beatles cover, but it works. I kind of like the mid-tempo kind of vibe of it. It's really good. And speaking of the Beatles, they actually kind of pay tribute to the Beatles on this album, because the cover is basically a homage to Let It Be, and Too Fast for Love was a homage to the Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers. So that was kind of a cool thing that they did. Shout at the Devil was produced by Tom Werman, who produced Cheap Trick and other bands, and the production on here is very good. All the instruments are very, you can hear them. It's just amazing production. So with that, we go to Theater of Pain, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really like this album. It's got a lot of filler for probably for its own good. Stuff like Smoking in the Boys' Room, Home Sweet Home, and Tonight We Need a Lover. That's good. You can't really complain about that. There's also a bonus track on a reissue, Tommy's Drum Piece from Cherokee Studios, which is a really good drum kind of track. And if you ever wanted to hear Tommy Lee kind of just do what he does, and definitely listen to that. But bottom line, Theater of Pain, not that great, but if you're a Crüe fan, you might like it. And so we move on to Girls, Girls, Girls. And much like Theater of Pain, not very good. You can kind of tell they were getting really messed up, and they were not able to write good songs. Girls, Girls, Girls is great. Anthemic. Honestly, that might be the only one I actually like on there, honestly. I mean, let me get something straight. Not the entire album is terrible. It's not terrible, but it's very forgettable. That's what I'm trying to say. And so we move on to Dr. Feelgood, and this was their comeback album of sorts, because everyone got sober, everyone got focused, and this might have ended up being their best one. It's not my favorite. My favorite's still coming up, but this one is pretty good. We have a great intro, TNT, Terror in Tinseltown, which serves as a great prelude to Dr. Feelgood, which is a great song, does what it does. Sauce Your Pet Pie has kind of hair metal thing before it kind of moves into a very Beatles-esque kind of thing with the "She's So Heavy" type of vibe near the end. "Kickstart My Heart," great song. Great song, you know. "Same Old Situation" is great as well. It was actually the first song I ever learned how to play on guitar, so I do have a soft side to it. Really, the entire album is pretty good. I mean, it's very awesome. So now we move on, and they actually released a kind of a compilation album back then in 1991, so called "Decade of Decadence." And this was basically a compilation album. It featured unreleased songs, new songs, greatest hits, kind of remixes of other songs. So it was definitely eclectic, to say the least. And of their unreleased songs or the new songs, some of them are good, some of them aren't. Problem with Scream and Anarchy in the UK, those were great. Songs like "Angela" and "Teaser" are kind of forgettable, but "Teaser" is pretty good as well. But again, just forgettable. So now we kind of move on, and one sad thing did happen. Vince Neil left or was fired or something happened because he left Mötley Crüe. Mötley Crüe was without a singer. And how were Mötley Crüe going to be a band without Vince Neil? He was like I wouldn't say the heart of it. That would be Nikki Sixx, but he definitely was the voice of it. And so they acquired John Corabi, who was formerly of the Scream, and that's where we go to the self-titled album, Mötley Crüe. And I'll be honest with you, this is my favorite Mötley Crüe album of all time. Not only that, it's one of my top 5 favorite albums, period. This is a great, underrated album. Like, they got so focused, and this album is probably the heaviest they've ever been. This was in the smack dab in the middle of the grunge era, and they still did it. You know, they have songs like "Power to the Music," "Hooligan's Holiday," "Misunderstood," "Poison Apples," "Till Death Do Us Part," "Welcome to the Numb." All of those songs are fantastic. They are great. And that album ruled. That's all I can say. The really sad thing about it is that it didn't really do that well. And that's a shame, too, because it's a great album, but it didn't do that well. Probably because, you know, it had the Mötley Crüe name on it. And this was a very different Mötley Crüe album. You know, so different that they probably should have just kind of did it under a new name. But, you know, what are you going to do? But and they also released a EP called Quaternary, which I think was released only in Japan, I think. I'm really not sure. But it was very limited. It's out of print right now. And they have kind of like these kind of 5 songs, 4 of which were kind of like solo efforts by the band. John Corabi did "Friends," Nikki Sixx did "Father," Mick Mars did "Bittersweet," and Tommy Lee did "Planet Boom." All those songs are pretty good. My favorite's "Bittersweet" because we get to hear Mick Mars do what he does. Again, showing why he's one of the best guitar players of all time. So, and "Baby Kills" is a great band song as well. So, and a lot of those songs were re-released on a Mötley Crüe compilation album called Supersonic and Demonic Relics. So, if you can find it, definitely take a listen to it. It's definitely worth listening to. And so Vince Neil rejoined the band in around 97 or so. And they released Generation Swine, which is very different from their other albums. They really experimented a lot on this one. It was more of an alternative rock sound, and I really like this album. I really do. I think this one is kind of underrated, or at least overlooked. Like, this one is just very good. You know, stuff like Afraid, Flush, Confessions. Glitter is a great ballad. Let Us Pray is a great rocker as well. So, you know, definitely a good album. Probably give it another chance. But I really like that album. And so they released a greatest hits album a year later. Basically greatest hits. I mean, really nothing very major. And they did 2 new songs called Bitter Pill and Enslaved. I haven't heard Enslaved. I've only heard a few seconds of Enslaved. It's not that great. And neither is Bitter Pill. It's really not that great. Rather forgettable. But, you know, whatever. And they released that Supersonic and Demonic Relics album I was talking about. Basically kind of outtakes, you know, stuff like that. They also have a song on there called Hooligan's Holiday, which is the extended holiday mix. It goes on for 11 minutes. Very electronic stuff. If you're just looking for something different, take a listen to that. And Mood Ring is very weird as well. Definitely worth a listen. And so, in this era, Tommy Lee went to prison for domestic violence, and after he left prison, he left Mötley Crüe. He went to go form his own band called Methods of Mayhem. I've listened to one song by them, and they're all right. Like they're really nothing special, but they're all right. And so, New Tattoo is actually, honestly, again, really good album. You know, underrated as well. Mötley Crüe has a lot of underrated albums. Their best being Mötley Crüe, in my opinion. But Generation Swine and this one, New Tattoo, are really good as well. You know, like She Needs Rock and Roll, Punched in the Teeth by Love, Hell on High Heels, you know. These are great. Their cover of White Punks on Dope is really good as well. So definitely check it out. They had Randy Castillo, who played with Lita Ford and Ozzy Osbourne on drums. And he does a decent job. He's no Tommy Lee, but you know, he's a solid rock drummer. And so the band didn't necessarily break up, but they went on hiatus. And Mick Mars didn't do anything. Tommy Lee kind of kept doing his own thing. Vince Neil kind of kept doing his own thing. None of them really did anything except for Nikki Sixx. He did this band called 58, I think. And I don't really know that band. And okay, what was that band? Oh, Brides of Destruction. Brides of Destruction. I've only heard a couple songs from them, but they're really good. And I really want to hear that. Here Comes the Brides album. And so, in 2005, Mötley Crüe got back together. They did another greatest hits album. The few songs that they had on there is pretty good. And so, they kind of reformed. And in 2008, they released Saints of Los Angeles. And that's a good album, but the lyrics are kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just kind of reflective in some ways. And if this is going to be the last album, then, you know, it makes a lot of sense. But if it wasn't going to be the last album, then it was kind of too reflective, as I said. But it's still pretty good. I mean, Nikki can definitely write some great lyrics. And so, the title track is awesome. What's It Gonna Take is good as well. The Saint Love song is great as well. The entire album is great. Good production value, all that stuff. And so, a year before this, Nikki Sixx did 6 a.m., which is a kind of a super group kind of thing. He did it with James Michael, I think that's his name. He's kind of the producer on Mötley Crüe's latest albums. And the DJ Ashba, who's now playing in Guns N' Roses now. And I want to say 6 a.m. is alright. I mean, it's just not my taste in music. The lyrics are great. The music can be good at times, but it's just, it's not my thing. And so, you know, and then they did another Greatest Hits album, and then they put out a single a couple years ago called Sex, which is, you know, kind of self-explanatory. It was actually a pretty good single, and I was kind of hoping that they would do more singles, but they ended up not doing anything, at least not yet anyway. And so this year they held a press conference and they decided to retire. Just not. I really don't like them retiring, because Mötley Crüe, they're still good. Like, even though the last album kind of contained lyrics that are a bit too reflective, it felt like a concept album to the dirt, which is a book that they did. But I still liked it, and they can still play. So, but I understand why they're retiring. They said that they don't want to be a type of band that kind of still has like half the members and are just playing clubs. They want to go out on top, and I definitely understand that. But I just want them not to retire because they're still good. But, you know, whatever. I mean, they definitely deserve to retire because they've pretty much done it all. They've done some great music. And so that's really all I have to say about Mötley Crüe. They have some good albums, they have some bad albums, but overall they're a pretty good band and definitely one of my favorites. So on the next episode, I'm going to try and record it tonight, but I'm going to do a podcast on WrestleMania 30. And I'm going to try and get that up in the next few days. And then on the next podcast, I'll be talking about Joan Jett and the Blackhearts discography. So stay tuned for that. Thank you and good night.